where LADWP waits for that equipment to be installed. So that is one of the big things we tell our customer to make sure that whatever upgrade you request through the city, have your contractor follow through with it, or else LADBS will not issue you a final permit to operate your system.
Yeah, we just have to move.
So a little bit further for recommendations, I gave you the $4 to $5 figure. If you shop around, we've seen systems as low as $3 for a resident. So definitely go through 3 or 4 contractors. Solar is a hefty investment, so we do have a link for Go Solar California, which they provide a big list of contractors for you to follow up with. And also LADWP offers home energy efficiency rebates. So those are resources that you can access to decrease your load before you invest heavily in solar. And usually with those rebates, you're getting incentive for your refrigerator to do your air conditioning, whatnot. And let me skip that slide. So lastly, I just want to talk about some of our meter and billing concerns that we get a lot of questions on from our customers. For one, there needs to be an electric smart meter capable of wireless communication. That's to help us measure your incremental energy and to bill you correctly. So a lot of people have issues with smart meters. If you can't have a smart meter, then you really can't do solar. Another one is that we remind customers to go through the entire process. Don't turn on your system early. So some of our customers have very old meters that don't turn backwards. So when they put solar and they deliver solar energy to LADWP, that meter just keeps turning that same way, and they're getting charged double. And they call us and they go to call our customer service division. They go, what the? And we have to tell them, you weren't fully inspected. And we need to put in that electric meter to charge your, to do your rates correctly. Lastly, there are some delays to set up your bill. That's because once the meter gets set up and installed, it needs to go through the various groups to program and make sure communication is inputted into the billing system. So it will take a couple to a few months for you to get your first bill with your solar credits. And here's a slide with just some program resources. You can go online to our website to access any of our program documents, as well as call our hotline or email us if you have any questions regarding solar. And if you have an interconnection related question, if you think you want to do solar, EV, you're not sure, but you're not sure if your service is set up for that, you can contact our contact center, and we can have an electric service representative to come and look at your existing home or your commercial facility to tell you what you need to either do solar, if you want to do EV, or anything, any enhancements to your interconnection. And with that, thank you for having me. I hope I didn't take too much of your time.
Just one question from Maddie.
Sure.
So I realize you're the solar guy. I don't mean to put you on the spot. So if it's out of your zone, let me know. But for residents who are interested in alternate solutions, for those of us who advocate for choice, community choice, aggregate type programs, or people who want boom boxes, what sort of alternate programs other than solar does DWP offer incentives for? Because solar's kind of great and on an in-basin level, but there's other technologies that have come online, like boom boxes, and also different schemes like choice aggregate. If it's something you can speak about quickly, please do. If not, I understand.
I'll just speak really quickly. All the other technologies right now are not commercially as viable and economical for our customers. Even battery backups, most of the time you're not going to make any money or get any economic benefits from that. So in addition to solar, LADWP offers our energy efficiency programs, like I said, to reduce your load, reduce your bill, and offer rebates for those measures.
Okay, thank you, Peter. We're going to bring to mobility and transportation. Right now we got Bart Reed from Transit Coalition. He'll talk about transportation services.
We're stuck. Yeah. Just accept. There we go. Yeah, as good as it's going to get.
Hi, everybody. We got all the wonderful technical things going on. I have figured out how to screen to move this forward. Anyways, I'm Bart Reed. I'm the executive director of the Transit Coalition. We're a San Fernando Valley-based nonprofit. We deal with transportation advocacy, land use planning, and goods movement. I actually was on the red car in 1952, believe it or not. My father took me to Woodman Avenue and Chandler, and I got to ride the red car. Of course, I don't remember it, but I got told, so what can I say? I did grow up in Van Nuys here. I went to Grant High School. I remember Mike's Pizza, broadcasting fake radio stations from the high-rise building that's been abandoned since the earthquake. So I avidly remember all sorts of fun things from Van Nuys. Meanwhile, transportation. 43 years ago, I was very young, and we didn't have much of a bus system in the San Fernando Valley. And I worked for a member of Congress, and we had issues, and it was first coming on the horizons that people were getting old. We had to have mobility for seniors and all. And the San Fernando Valley had never really had, the bus system had been taken over from private industry, hadn't really changed much. The routes were pretty much the same for 20 or 30 years. And county supervisor came up with the idea of running a grid bus system in South Los Angeles and a grid system for the San Fernando Valley, and it was launched. And while I was working for this Congress member, we had public hearings, the same here, whatever the predecessor building was in Van Nuys. And I called up Council Member Bernardi Hernani and said, you know, they're going to put this bus service out, but they only want to run the buses to 7 o'clock at night. And he said, oh, we can get you a couple buses. We'll bring in all the senior citizens.
So we got 2 or 3 busloads of people that went down, and I don't have to ever tell anybody what to talk about because they already knew. As soon as the public came to the meeting and heard the buses were going to stop at 7 p.m., and the Metro planning staff looked at wonderment and said, well, why would you want to ride the bus past 7 o'clock? It's dark. It's scary. Who'd need a bus past 7? And all these feisty senior citizens would get up and say, well, we go to the movies, we go bowling, we actually do things with our life. We need the buses. And then how did Metro predecessor agency react? Well, they thought that I had fixed the game. Believe it or not, I had got all those senior citizens up, instructed them what to say, and I fixed the game. So a month later, they decided they would have another hearing, and they let me know that I had fixed the game and I should not be so public about it. So I called up Nanny Bernardi's office and said they told me that I had fixed the game. He said, oh, okay, we'll get another 3 or 4 buses out there. And I didn't bother to go to the meeting. I heard massive reports. The people were even angrier to report back that they wanted the buses past 7 o'clock at night, believe it or not. So that's how I got my start in transportation. I knew that there's lots of obstacles in what happens, and there's lots of people that have belief systems on how things should work or not work. And if you don't investigate, document, create, and bring forth realities that how things could work better, then you get stuck with the same old, same old. So in this presentation, I have a group of interns called the Tiger Team from Cal State Northridge. We'll see whether he promised me this would work. Maybe it has to point somewhere. That's the PowerPoint. They don't let me do high tech, so. Well, somebody sit there and I'll just tell you to move it to the next slide. How about that? Just go to the page 2, page 3. Okay, so really quickly, I have these urban planning interns from Cal State Northridge, and they all come to me with the same question. The department chair, everybody comes with the same questions about what's with transportation, why doesn't this work, why doesn't that work, why can't you get from here to there? And I say, well, okay, you want to come to work, we're going to prepare documentation and we're going to show what we need to do. We're going to take some slices of a life and we're going to attack it and see if we can fix things. So go to page 3. And our goal is to establish and document unmet transportation needs in the San Fernando Valley for funding inclusion in the potential sales tax measure that's coming next November. Now, what you should know about sales tax measures is that we've had 3 of them, and they're very hard to pass. It takes a 2/3 majority to pass a sales tax measure. And in the sales tax measure, the first measure and the second measure, the money that was supposed to be for increased bus and train service actually ended up going for wage increases and other unforeseen expenses. The third sales tax, which was passed in 2008, the state turned around in the middle of the recession and all, and they said, well, you know, we need $90 million. Why don't we just take it out of Metro's budget? And Metro just happened to have that sales tax, and they took all the money that was supposed to be used for increased bus service, and they used it to backfill the state missing $90 million. So fast forward to 2016, we're looking at lessons learned and how can we change the realities and the mistakes of what happened back then. So we're busy out there documenting what we perceive to be unmet needs in the valley and the ways to protect the valley so we can actually get something for our money in the valley rather than being shortchanged. Next page, 4. What we've taken a look at in the valley is that we accidentally started looking about how we have lots of shift workers in the valley. Anybody been on Balboa Boulevard and know how many restaurants there are on Balboa Boulevard? How many other factories? There's factories on Balboa Boulevard that manufacture things. They have telemarketing businesses and all. Brad was here earlier. Off of Balboa Boulevard at the Orange Line, the bus goes to Warner Center. There's lots and lots of telemarketing jobs. Telemarketing jobs start selling at 9 a.m. East Coast time, which means you got to be in your chair at 6 here. Well, we started taking a look. If you get off a train at Sylmar Metrolink at 5:18, you'd think a bus will be along to get you down the Orange Line. Well, not really. The 6:13 train comes, the bus will be along. Yeah, the first bus pulls up at 6:38 a.m. and gets to the Orange Line at 7:40 a.m. So you can be in time at your 8 o'clock shift at the Warner Center for your telemarketing job. In other words, the buses don't go on the streets to get people to work. Metro was asking today at the board meeting, the mayor wants to know why are bus service flat or decreasing. It's like, well, if you ever took a restaurant job or any kind of job on Balboa Boulevard and the bus service starts at 8 in the morning at Ventura and in Sylmar 8 in the morning, how do you get to your 6 o'clock shift? Big restaurants like McDonald's, their shifts start at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., and 7 a.m. So we found some restaurants. We talked to some McDonald's. One McDonald's in Sylmar, 55 employees, 12 of them walk from San Fernando Road to the store, a 15-minute walk. The problem, of course, is the first bus by San Fernando Road that actually is going to Olive View Hospital doesn't go through Pacoima until like 6:05 in the morning. So we've got this pattern all over the valley that the buses don't start early enough. You Reseda in Devonshire somewhere, you can't get to jobs on time, or because the service is once an hour, you get this condition if you have to be an 8 o'clock job on one of the high rises on Ventura Boulevard between Balboa and Sepulveda. Sometimes you have to be on the bus at 6:13 on a street like White Oak because the pattern works that if you got the 7:13 bus, you'd get to work at 8:15, and if you're a law clerk and they start you at 8 o'clock, and if you miss 8 o'clock, you don't get there, you don't check into 8:30. Well, that's the way that works in the real world with employers. It isn't, you just kind of show up and you start work. So we found that there's a lot of problem with the buses actually working. If you take a look at the Orange Line, it basically runs from about 3-something a.m. till 1 a.m. And again, if you take a look at all the streets, there's a distributive potential along the Orange Line, but since the bus routes don't run on most of the streets, or like take a street like Winnetka. There's a power center at the north end of Winnetka. I don't believe that bus runs on a Sunday. DeSoto doesn't run on Sunday. You can't get anywhere to work. You can't get anywhere. So that's the problem with the weekend service. Then we saw that connecting across the valley, since bear in mind the last time we really revised the bus service was 1972, Cal State Northridge, largest university in the Cal State system, bigger than UCLA and all, has a goal of being sustainable and getting people to campus. You get off a train at Metrolink in Sylmar, the 6:13 or the 7:10 train or whatever, and you want to get to campus, it's another hour because you'd have to take 2 or 3 buses to get to the campus. We proposed taking a street, because they did take away a Lassen Street bus a couple years ago. We proposed Sylmar, Chatsworth Street. We looked at the route potentials to get to Cal State Northridge, extend a bus route, and take care of the problem. Same thing with Bob Hope Airport. To get to Bob Hope Airport from North Hollywood Red Line can take an hour and a half. It's a 10-minute trip by car. So we see there's something wrong with the bus services in the valley. And then we've also seen that you can't get from the Santa Clarita area to the San Fernando Valley or vice versa. Same job thing happens. You have a job at Princess Cruises, one of the largest employers on the West Coast, and cruise telemarketing. Shifts start at 6:37. Can you take the train up there and be there on time for an 8 o'clock job? Great. You missed 3 hours on the East Coast. So let's go to page 5. We have a map here. The map looks really wonderful. I mean, look how robust it is. All these streets, all these routes and all. Problem is that by the time you take away the service that doesn't start early enough, the service that stops after 7 o'clock, the service that doesn't run on Saturday and Sunday, you basically are going to be looking at a skeleton. And truthfully, maybe we ought to do an illustration with PowerPoint and show you the skeleton. It's pretty shocking what isn't really there. So the problem is what is really there and what is being sold to the public and how you get around. I mean, if it takes an hour and a half to 2 hours to get from my office at Olive View Hospital to Devonshire and Sepulveda, which is a site where some of the workers live, it's a 12-minute trip by car. Something is not okay. Number 6, page 6. Next thing we looked at, we've been looking at this for a while. The orange line goes by the corner of Satakoy and the orange line, Canoga Avenue, about every 7.5 minutes. It runs 20-some hours a day. It starts at something 3, 4, or 5 in the morning, and it goes until 1 in the morning. Well, the bus actually stops. If you go, take videos back up the street from Satakoy there, the bus actually stops there. It hits the red light all the time. But we have at that corner there, we have the LA County Mental Health Center. It's one of the 2 regional mental health centers in the valley. We have the lowest income majority minority community in that area. In other words, people live 4, 5, 7 people in an apartment unit. They pay their rent, but they all get bulked up. We have a once-an-hour Satakoy bus, and the orange line goes right by there. And Metro is like, all of a sudden, it's like they can't spend a couple $100,000 or $1 million to break in some concrete, put in a couple of tap vending machines, put in some fare validators and some bus stop signs, and try a pilot project for a year to see if it would work. The council members like all flipped out. It's like, we just wanted them to see if it could work. They wrote Metro, and Metro came back and said, well, it sort of runs like a subway. We can't do that. It would be impossible. It's like, well, why am I sitting there waiting for this bus at the red light? Well, just want to get my video back on time before I'm charged more money. So I finally got word yesterday that one of the county supervisors is going to carry this motion, because all it is asking for information. It's going to go back. Supervisor Yaroslav, Supervisor Antonovich and Kuehl are both backing it, and maybe if we're lucky, we'll get the mayor and Blumenfield to back this too. Number 7, the Northridge Metrolink station relocation. Some people had real difficulty understanding the concept of this map here, so I'm going to explain this in critical detail here. What happened is that we had an earthquake in 1990. Yeah? I have 3 more slides. What? We have a bus route on Van Nuys Boulevard. If you stay on this bus, it goes down Ventura, it goes up to the Cal State Northridge. If you take the train station was built right after the earthquake, and what happened is that it's 0.6 of a mile away from the corner of Reseda and Parthenia. The buses run on Reseda Boulevard 20 hours a day. How about the fact that the train station is 0.6 of a mile away? People don't want to walk. So we have Northridge Hospital on the south side of Roscoe, and we have Cal State Northridge on the north, and we're looking into potentially, with Measure R.2, relocating the train station so it can be useful and make sense to the community. I mean, imagine Metrolink is double tracking the railroad there. They're going to spend money for a train station that's 0.6 of a mile away, and perhaps it gets done right so we get some value for our money. On the last 2 sequence and slides, we have the Newhall Pass. Briefly, same thing. If you go up Van Nuys Boulevard and get to the Sylmar Metrolink station, can't get over the hill to Santa Clarita. Becomes a big problem in transit gap for the San Fernando Valley. Number 9. Number 9 is Van Nuys Boulevard. We have 3 projects. We have what's known as the East San Fernando Valley North-South Corridor, which is Van Nuys Boulevard. It's a project that's going to be shovel-ready when the locally preferred alternative is selected by the Metro Board of Directors. What this means in English is that Metro is looking at 4 potential route possibilities. 2 of them are bus lines. 1 bus runs in the center of the street. 1 bus runs on the edge of the street, like the current rapid bus runs. And they're thinking about putting a streetcar in, which they give a fancy name, a tram. And then the other project is light rail. We're concerned that the valley is going to get shorted because there's people on staff that I talk to that would really rather have bus rapid transit, because Valley doesn't ride rail. They don't need it. It's only the 6th or 7th largest city, 5th largest city in the country. Van Nuys Boulevard is the 8th largest transit corridor in Los Angeles County. We deserve a bus, sure. Now, the next part of this is the 405 corridor, which there's $1.1 billion in the project, but the project is more in the like $8 or $9 billion. The concept here is that if transit goes down Van Nuys Boulevard, the Metro staff has been planning this so you can get off your bus rapid transit here and maybe take a train to Westwood. That's just like what we have in North Hollywood, where you can get off a train with 300 people and get to a bus that carries 60 people. We see the concept of having a contiguous, same technology, north and south on Van Nuys Boulevard, and not changing trains, not changing anything, right here at the orange line of this corner here. Because of Keys Motors Group, they forced Metro to change all their plans because Keys, the largest largest taxpayer, Los Angeles County, is scared that if a train ran on the surface that people wouldn't be able to make left turns into their car lot. The real truth is that because Van Nuys Boulevard is so congested south of here, pretty much you'd have to put the train in a tunnel anyways. We tried to explain to Keys that if you would be supportive of a tunnel, we could have everybody on the same page. The Valley and Van Nuys Boulevard could benefit from getting to UCLA from Van Nuys and Victory to UCLA in 10 or 12 minutes instead of an hour, 2 or 3 hours on the 405 parking lot. I mean, imagine. So the conversion of the Orange Line is third in line, and some people have got, a lot of right-wingers have got really excited about the fact that the Orange Line could be converted to rail. And we need to point out that Metro, the law just changed 3 months ago. Metro doesn't have any kind of money allocated to do any kind of research or planning on conversion of the Orange Line. So even if the Orange Line is wanted to be made into a rail line, that wouldn't happen until November 2016 with Measure R.2. At that point, it would probably take a year, year and a half between the sales tax being collected and all for the planning staff to be appointed to start planning it. They started in 2008, the Van Nuys to Sylmar project was appointed, and the planners are still planning it now, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 6 or 7 years later, planning still goes on. So one would imagine that if the Orange Line planning was only 5 years to convert it, then 3 years to build it, we're looking about 2027. So the real question really is, do we want the shovel-ready project, which is Sylmar to Van Nuys, and get the private-public partnership to continue it down to UCLA, or do we get all excited about the Orange Line to a bus rapid transit 2027? The last slide here is number 10, and that's the same thing, which I actually already mentioned this, the compatible technologies. We want a one-seat ride. The Valley's the only place that's ever, the people in this neighborhood council are going to make the difference. When Metro comes and tells you about the swell tram and how there'll be a different technology, we need a one-seat ride. I don't understand why there could be a one-seat ride down Wilshire, but we have to have a change in rides on Van Nuys Boulevard right here at the Orange Line. And I'm going to put the example in there, and you can see passengers walking in the rain here because ZEV prevented the Orange Line, Red Line stairway from being built 15 years ago. Now it's finally being built. And the last and final is that we have in this Measure R a really important point of firewalling operational funding. The whole concept here is that Metrolink is double tracking, so you'll be able to have trains from Van Nuys Boulevard at Satakoy Street. From Sylmar, there'll be double tracks. There is plans to run the trains every half hour, but the question is, where is the money? If the money comes from Measure R.2, we want it firewalled and protected, because that way you can get to Bob Hope Airport, you can get to Cal State Northridge, you can get to Van Nuys itself with the frequent bus service, and you can get downtown. And it just changes the whole world. Just imagine you live downtown, you want to go to the plant for movies, train comes every half hour. Same thing with this missing bus operational funding. All right, well, say goodbye here. The whole point is it needs to be firewalled, and we need to protect the Valley. So that's my points.
No, because we got to move on. If you want to, this is a fair catch. Okay, thank you. We want to bring Lillian from Metro LA.